Captain Kidd is one of the most well-known members of the worst generation. He sits at the pinnacle along with Luffy, Law, and Blackbeard. He's definitely one of those characters that fans expect to see in the final arc, but despite this, Kidd receives a lot of backlash. In this video, I will be discussing how Kidd went from a top worst generation icon to a complete bum that's sleeping with the fishes. I also will discuss the approach I think Oda should have taken with Kidd's character. Let's get this video started. Kidd resides from an island in the South Blue. His childhood was marked by violence and lawlessness. He grew up in a harsh environment, which shaped his brutal outlook on life. Kidd's childhood friend and the girl he loved was killed by a gang ruling over the area. Her death had a large impact on Kidd. In response to her murder, Kidd, along with other childhood friends that are now his crewmates, revolted against the gang and overthrew them from power. They then set out to sea as a pirate crew, naming their ship the Victoria Punk in their deceased friend's memory. With a backstory as sad as this, you should have the drive to accomplish anything you want. The motivation for Kidd should be, I only became a pirate in the first place because my friend died. If I fail at being a pirate, then I'm failing my friend. Similar to how Zoro's goal to become the world's greatest swordsman is extremely pushed by his old promise he made to Quina. So if Zoro doesn't become the greatest swordsman to ever set foot on Earth, then he will fail Quina. When Kidd is first introduced in the series, he had the highest bounty among any other supernova, including Luffy. This was because his crew was more ruthless than the Straw Hats. They would, without reason, attack innocent civilians. When we first see Kidd, he is fighting next to Luffy and Law. We all know Luffy and Law go on to be the masterminds behind the fall of Doflamingo and Kaido. Kidd fighting alongside Luffy and Law is Oda's way of telling us that these are going to be the top 3 center focus members of the supernovas. I'm pretty sure, like me, you guys were buying it as well. At the end of the Sabaody arc, we saw Kidd put a captain and his crew on crucifixes. After that, he then proceeded to tell them, I'm not letting you go back to your families. This scene painted Kidd and his crew as the soulless monsters that Shaggy said they were. After killing an entire pirate crew by hanging them up like Jesus, Kidd then called out to Luffy to let him know that he's going to be the one ruling the second half of the Grand Line. Now we move on to the New World, a place where the strongest pirates reside, including the 4 Yonko of the Sea. Despite Kidd being a major threat during the first half of the Grand Line, this meant absolutely nothing in the New World. The time skip is where we would witness a legend in the making, Eustace Kidd, turn into Eustace Mid. He would challenge 3 Yonko only to get clapped by all 3. Shanks's crew robbed Kidd of his arm. Kaido smashed on Kidd, threw him in jail, stole some of his crew members, and then turned his right-hand man into a laughing freak. When it comes to Big Mom, she was just straight up violating Kidd. Kidd finally managed to use his awakened ultimate blast against her, only for her to give a full verbal speech while getting blasted. I honestly don't even think she felt it. If Law didn't help, Kidd was definitely biting the dust. Lastly, Kidd tried to spin back on Shanks and Elbaf just for Shanks to one-tap him and get his ship Victoria Punk completely destroyed. Don't get me wrong, Kidd definitely has done great things, but the problem is all of his beneficial accomplishments happen off-screen. For example, he stormed into Big Mom's territory and took a rubbing of her road poneglyph. This is a huge feat, but the only problem is it's off-screen. The real problem with Kidd is that he's so hyped up off-screen, and when we finally do see him on screen, all he does is take losses. With that being said, I don't think getting one-tapped by Shanks is the end for him. But I do wish Oda would have taken a different approach with Eustace Mid's character. When we first see Kidd putting his enemies on crucifixes before the time skip, I think that's the right role for Kidd. Being a future antagonist of Luffy was the right role for Kidd. I think our perception of Kidd was altered when we saw a lot of him in Wano. He was still a cold-hearted character, but he also would have humorous scenes with Luffy or Law. Now, this is how Oda should have gone about with Kidd. First, Oda should have kept Kidd's villainous nature. We should never have gotten to experience how Kid interacts with people for an entire arc. I feel like this killed the mysterious nature of the character. The reason Dragon is so anticipated is because we hardly know anything about him. Mad Monk should have taken Kid's spot in Wano. This way, Kid could have remained mysterious until the very end. Also, I hate Kid's approach. I hate how Oda paints Kid as this hot-headed character, but he always loses. I feel like there is nothing wrong with Kid being a hothead, but you can't have him going out bad like this multiple times. It really makes his character less serious. We all knew Kid was supposed to be just like Luffy, except more ruthless. Instead of having Kid and Luffy both take on Yonko along their pirate journey, Oda should have had Kid taking on high-ranking marine officers instead. This way, Kid would have mirrored without running into him in the new world. Luffy takes on warlords, Kid takes on marine captains. Luffy takes on Yonko's first commanders, Kid takes on vice admirals. And finally, Luffy takes on a Yonko, while Kid takes on an admiral. This approach would perfectly put them in a race to the top without having to cross paths until it's time to take each other's poneglyphs. Also, Kid fighting Marines would play into his character because Shaki said he was ruthless and didn't care about the lives of civilians. I think it would have been cool seeing Kid fight a high-ranking Marine officer while using destructive attacks, not caring about people's safety. This would have really built up his character. Also, he would have served as a great catalyst for causing Kobe to get stronger. The main reason Kobe didn't believe in himself is because no villain has ever pushed him. He's never had a real fight with a high-risk factor. If Kid had taken the fight Marines route, Kobe would have been forced to run into him. Just like how Luffy got stronger by fighting and losing to tough adversaries, Kobe should have endured the same thing. If this was the case, Kobe would be a lot stronger than he is. Haki gets stronger the more you fight and train it. Kid could have potentially been a fight to increase Kobe's experience. Lastly, in this video, I want to talk about Kid's awakening. Kid is a ruthless character with little regard for human life, so why didn't Oda just turn him into a bloodbender? In the popular series Avatar, bloodbending is a forbidden technique that lets water users manipulate the water within blood, therefore causing an opposing person's body to move against their will. This could be used to force someone to commit violent acts without their consent. Bloodbending is also used for torturing your opposition. This is why bloodbending is illegal in the Avatar series. Now with Kid, he's a pirate, so rules don't apply to him anyway. Kid doesn't control water, but he can control iron through magnetism. Younger people may not know this, but iron is inside our bodies. Hemoglobin is a protein inside our red blood cells, and each hemoglobin molecule contains 4 iron atoms. With enough precise control and the use of observation haki, Kid could target these iron atoms flowing through your body, gaining control of a person's movement similar to Avatar's bloodbending. Kid could also shut down parts of a person's body, restricting blood flow from it. This is a cruel and inhumane way to fight, but this is what Kid's character is all about. This is how Oda introduced us to Kid in the first place. When we first saw Kid, he was a ruthless pirate. He still is ruthless to a degree, because we saw what would have happened if Shanks didn't stop his attack at Elbaf. He would have did crazy damage to individuals who posed no real threat. I wish Oda expanded more on the ruthless nature of Kid. Like I said, these changes I've listed throughout the video would have definitely made fans take Kid more seriously. Well, that's all for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.